shouldn't call it the newsroom of the future, should actually call it our newsroom of the future, because it's the way we envision it. It's probably wrong the way these things go. So by the time we finish implementing what we think is right, the world would have changed. But that's the fun thing, you keep building, rebuilding, and it's a complete journey. The heartening thing for me is when Rajesh asked me to speak here, I thought I would be speaking to a room full of very young people. I'm happy to see that the median age is closer to mine, and the mean is probably a little higher. So it's very, very heartening to see that. Most journalists of my generation, we are essentially print people. And our visualization of the world was the paper, right? You should ignore the music. I have no idea what music has been put in, but it's all right. It's not the kind of stuff you'll hear in my room. Everyone likes to think in terms of their newsroom's efforts culminating in a newspaper. And that doesn't work in this day and age, because a newspaper comes out once a day, right? The web, you can refresh it every second if you want to. Typically, every time something new happens, you can refresh the web, you can put up a news story, you can move what is happening, you can play up something which you think is going to get lots of hits. And it's very, very different. So you can't envision print as being the culmination of what you do. So we visualize the newsroom as something that delivers across devices, delivers across media. So you have tablets, you have the website, you have online video, which is a very, very big thing. And online video is really a big thing, because I think just like newspapers are sort of in the wrong game, I think 24/7 broadcast channels are also in the wrong game, because they just produce some content and they push it out to readers, and online video allows all content to be pull-based, right? So for instance, I reach home around 10:30 every night, and if I want to see business news, not that I want to see business news, right? At 10:30, by the time I'm finished with my day, all I want to see is a senseless movie with lots of gore, right? I don't want to see anything else. But you switch on any of the business news channels, you don't find anything worthwhile. On one channel you have US Squawk Box, where where you basically listen to what's happening in the US. In another channel, you have someone playing golf with the CEO. You really don't want to watch those things. You want to know what happened in business that day. Whereas if you go online and someone just offers you, the day's business, it's pretty much like what the world this week used to be in a weekly level, if someone does it on a daily basis. I think the surfeit of television is sort of making us wish for some distilled, curated, packaged, and very, very concise content that we can just consume on demand. I can consume it on my tablet, on my phone, whenever I want to. So our whole premise is that this newsroom should be able to deliver across devices. And it should be a newsroom that pretty much uses social media for a variety of purposes. And I say a variety of purposes because, social media is very different from lots of other media. There is an external aspect to it. There is a very, very internal process-driven aspect to it. And there are also multiple benefits to it. You can use it for various purposes. One of the purposes you can use it for is to advertise and amplify. So you do something interesting, you can use social media to advertise and amplify this. Now, I don't know how many of you were on Facebook and Twitter over the weekend. On Friday, for instance, one of my columnists wrote something provocative. That's what columnists are supposed to do. They're supposed to provoke. And sure enough, people responded. And if you look at that tiny spike on the right side, I actually wanted to show the budget, but one of my colleagues said it would be better if you show this, because on budget day we saw a similar spike, but that's respectable kind of stuff. This is based more on outrage than on positive referrals. And if you look at our Twitter and Facebook references, on that particular day, they spiked again, the number of references we got from Twitter and Facebook. So clearly, you can use social media to advertise. You can use it to amplify what you're doing. You can use it to engage, which is, simply interact with readers, which essentially means every time there's something new, like Pinterest, for instance, which is the flavor of the month when it comes to social media, you should just put your foot down there and say, okay, let's open a Pinterest account. We do lots of interesting visuals and graphics and all sorts of things. People may want to share it online. So it just gives you multiple ways of engaging with your audience. And then there's a third way, which is really process improvement. How do you use social media tools to improve how you create content? So for instance, if you look at our budget coverage, which happened not so long ago, the traffic on our site increased by 4 times what we usually get in those 2 hours when the budget was being presented. And I don't think it was because of the webcast of the Lok Sabha TV feed. It was because we used a tool called Cover It Live, and we had 20 of our top editors sit in wherever they were sitting, log into Cover It Live, and just live chat the budget. He's saying, this has happened, this is what it means, this has happened, this is what it means. Gives you the ability to pull out charts. So, there's one analyst who's pulling out stock charts and bond charts and everything else and showing how it works. Gives you the ability to link to past stories. And similar kind of thing is Storyfy, right? All these are content tools based on social media, which you can really use to improve how you work. But none of this will really work if you don't have 4 things. And the 4 things are: 1, technology leadership. 1, you need to think about what you're doing. Most newsrooms operate on fairly primitive technology. You need to think in terms of running an enterprise. So for instance, in our newsroom, we have the equivalent of an ERP, and all of you are smart people, you know what an ERP is. So we have a newsroom management software, which is the equivalent of an ERP, on which everyone is connected, and which runs everything. So, our ability to deliver across devices, our ability to work seamlessly, print and web are essentially driven by the same ERP, a newsroom management system, so to say. You need to invest in the right kind of software. You need to re-engineer your processes, because much like a manufacturing company that puts an ERP in place and finds out that its own processes are so inefficient that it's not going to work, which is why a lot of Indian software companies made big business out of ERP consulting. You need to re-engineer your own processes. How do your reporters work? How do your editors work? How do you edit videos? What do you do? And finally, which is a cultural aspect to it, which is a behavior aspect to it, you need to change behavior, because most reporters are still caught, at least most newspaper reporters are still caught in, I'll work through the day, I'll file my story at 7. I'll work through the day, I'll file my story at 9. You need to change behavior to get people to think differently. And I think 2 words sum up essentially what we are trying to do in the newsroom of the future, which is really web first. The web is the mother lode, drives everything. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions.